So my name is Chad Swinsker. I'm a manager out of our Dallas office, and I'm going to walk us through the presentation this evening. I'm joined by Myra, Art, and Laura, and all of us were recently, or sometime recently, and it's been a couple of years for me, myself, but in your shoes, and we're here today to walk you through kind of our experience and why we're here with AT Kearney. So with that, I'll give you a little bit of background on myself, and I'll let Art, Myra, and Laura introduce themselves here in a bit. So as I mentioned, I'm a manager in the Dallas office. I did my undergrad and grad degrees at Purdue University. I then moved to Dallas and did my MBA at a small school or a smaller school there, SMU. In my spare time, I like playing and watching sports, albeit I'm not that competitive. I really enjoy golf. I still am no good at it, but I do enjoy being outside and doing that on the weekends. And then anytime I get a chance to get on the water, I love boating. So I get out on the water and kind of enjoy the sunshine that Texas offers. My favorite movie is old school or anything that Will Ferrell's in. I know it can be a bit lame, but the guy makes me laugh, and he's the same in every movie, so I know exactly what I'm getting into. And in a previous life, I was a commercial pilot prior to making my way around to being a consultant. So that just goes to show you that it doesn't matter what you did. Consulting could be for anybody. So today what I'd like to do is I'll spend a few minutes here walking you through the program, the summer program, and kind of what you can expect. And then I will let Art and Myra and Laura introduce themselves, and then I'll host kind of a short Q&A session with some questions that we've prepared. And then I'll turn it over to Trish. She's going to be fielding questions that you guys have sent through in the meantime, and we'll go through some of those towards the end before we wrap up. So let me talk a little bit about the summer consultant program. So this is really just our goal here is to ensure sort of a positive experience for both you and the firm, right? So this is your chance to test out the firm and our chance to get to know you and kind of understand your fit with us as well. So first things first, we're going to provide a challenging and hands-on experience. So you're going to be an actual consultant for the summer. This isn't a situation where maybe something where you've experienced previously or maybe not, where you're going to be getting coffee or making copies. You're going to be part of a real team that's charged with delivering, insight and results for our client. And that'll be sort of the expectation of you to step in over the summer as an associate and be part of that team and kind of get the real immersed experience, right? And so to do that, we're not just going to leave you out to dry, right? We're going to provide the training and support you need to succeed. So plenty of professional development opportunities throughout the way within the firm, a customized training curriculum specifically for our summer associate program, both formal and informal mentoring program that'll be in place for you, and then obviously lots and lots of feedback, throughout the process and certainly at the end. And it'll give you an opportunity to get to know AT Kearney, right? So we've got a full calendar of events. It doesn't matter what office, you choose to be aligned with. All the offices will have events. Those will be both local and then, again, opportunities at the national level to come together with your cohort to get to know one another a little bit better and to get to know AT Kearney a little bit better. And then certainly plenty of opportunities to network as you're on the project and in your home office, and social opportunities to get to know the firm and of course, its people as well. So if we walk through sort of the high level, I'll call it the high level kind of program, 10-week program here. So day one is going to be a local day in your office. We'll give you your equipment. You'll get to meet your mentor and kind of get to meet your office community. And then that first week is CSA, Consulting Skills Awareness Training. So this is a formal training. It's national, and you'll get together with all of the other summer associates or summer interns that are coming through the program, and we'll go through what it's like to be a consultant and kind of teach you the AT Kearney way of consulting. From there, we're going to launch you into the real world. So for between 8 and 10 weeks, you'll get at the end of CSA, you'll get your assignment for the summer, and you will go off and travel to wherever the client is or the client team is meeting, and you'll work with your manager and the team as a real consultant on a real project to deliver real results. Somewhere through the middle is the LAF, or Learn About the Firm, for the summer associate groups, the MBA group. And this is just another great chance to come together with your cohort and meet senior leadership at the firm, learn about different things that the firm has going on, different practice groups, affinity groups, and understand kind of what we're all about, as well as have a little bit of fun along the way. And no summer internship would be complete without a mid-year feedback period there in the middle, kind of give you a chance to check in and understand kind of how you're doing, and give you a chance to focus on possibly some areas of growth, leading up to, towards the end of the summer, your final presentation, where you'll get to talk about, what you've learned on the project. You can explain your role to your home office and some of the senior leaders there. Talk about, what the result was of that, how your client interaction was, and maybe some of the things that you learned over the summer. And then it'll all culminate in kind of a final evaluation and the feedback, and then a potential offer decision towards the end. So again, I mentioned my name is Chad, so I've got Myra, Art, and Laura with me as well. And what I'd like to do now is kind of go into a quick overview. I'll let Myra introduce herself, and then we'll move to Art and Laura, and then we'll get into the questions. So Myra, if you'd like to quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Myra, as Chad said. I just joined the New York office. I summered with A.T. Kearney last summer from the New York office, and I just rejoined last week. And yesterday was my first day with my new client, so very exciting stuff. I did my bachelor's at the University of Pennsylvania, and then after that I moved to New York. I worked in the insurance business, and then just graduated from HBS. In my spare time, I really, different from Chad, I really don't do a lot of sports, but I love art and museums and going to shows, and I love going to movies, and anything sort of like art related is right up my alley. I put this fun fact, have traveled to 30 different countries, and kind of forgot who my audience was. Anyone who's in business school maybe has even more travel than I do, but about half of those I visited in my last year of business school, so that was a lot of fun.
Great, thanks, Myra. Art?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. My name is Art. I'm originally from Kazakhstan, grew up there, and then my family moved to the United States right before university. So I went to University of Texas at Austin, got a degree in finance and French, and then worked for about 8 years in the oil and gas industry for one of the major oil companies. Then went to get my MBA back at University of Texas at Austin, and that led me to A.T. Kearney in the summer of 2018. Had an excellent, pretty unique summer project. Happy to talk about that later. And I'm back. I just joined, same as Myra, and we actually are working on the same client, but for different kind of work streams. As far as personal interests, I like to play piano. I speak several languages, and I like to do sports, and that includes car racing, snowboarding, skiing. My favorite movie, is you can see here, is The Devil Wears Prada. I think it's full of awesome quotes that could be applicable to the consulting world. And yeah, I've also traveled quite a bit, maybe not quite as much as Myra, but 23 countries, but those are just business trips. So who knows? Happy to talk about any of the questions that you guys have later.
Very good. Thanks, Art. And last but not least, Laura.
Hi, everyone. Laurel Worsham. I am a manager out of our San Francisco office. I've been with Kearney full-time just about 2 years. So I did my summer associate internship back the summer of 2016. I actually did my summer in Chicago, where I went to grad school and got my MBA at University of Chicago, but I'm originally from California, and when I was rejoining full-time, it was important for me to be able to get back to California, where I have lots of family and friends and whatnot, and so, you know, firm was flexible in making sure that that could happen for me. So I rejoined full-time out of our San Francisco office and have been working in San Francisco since. Happy to talk through your questions, maybe since I've been here a little bit longer than our other panelists, some more questions you have about the full-time experience, as well. Yeah, really looking forward to chatting with you all.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. So I'll jump in here in the Q&A session, and obviously, everybody feel free to chime in. But Myra, maybe I'll tee up this first one for you. What were some of your main reasons for joining AT Kearney?
Yeah, happy to answer that. So I think for me, it came down to 3 differentiating factors that I learned about the firm. I think the first one really has to do with the size of the firm. I'd like to say it's kind of like in this Goldilocks size, it's like just right. It is big enough that we have access to all the major clients, all the major accounts, just as any other major consulting firm does. And so, we have access to the same breadth of industries and different types of project work that we would at any other firm. So that's part of it, but then it's also small enough that I think it really enables you to build stronger relationships within the firm, build stronger networks with the partners, and be able to really get a much more, just build better relationships in your career that will allow you to advance better. That brings me to the people. I really found that the people and the culture had a very unique vibe here at AT Kearney. I sort of felt that throughout my interviews, and it was solidified during my internship. I felt like people are quite authentic and empathetic, along with being extremely hardworking and competent and really interesting. And I felt just really comfortable with everyone that I interacted with, and felt like everyone was very open and willing to help and be sort of a resource if you ever needed one. And then lastly, I really actually appreciate the flexibility of location. So Kearney has several offices, obviously all over the country, but then also internationally. But from all of my conversations, I found that the firm was quite flexible in terms of what location you wanted to be in, both for the summer, but then also just full-time, and allowed a lot of potential mobility, which I found really attractive.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Both on the size thing, I think obviously with Myra, you're and Art's extensive travel experience, right? One of the benefits certainly is seeing new places and meeting new people as part of consulting here. So I would agree with those very much so. And maybe Art, for you, and unless you or Laura have something else for that, maybe Art, for you, what is one piece, or what do you wish you'd have known about AT Kearney prior to joining?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I feel like the firm supported me really, really well throughout the process. So I wish I knew that you as a summer associate get so much support from, the network that you build as you go through the recruiting process, and then just the people whom you meet during the first weeks of the summer program experience. So I wish I had known that I could rely on that more. So, and it's again kind of going back to what Myra mentioned, that people are very authentic here and they want you to succeed. And I never felt bad actually once the internship started asking questions. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and I remember that feeling as well, Art, and I definitely agree. It's just this anxiousness and kind of, you're not necessarily certain what it's going to be like, and then it was very reassuring and refreshing, right, to get on the project and understanding that, everybody there understands the position you're in, right, and wants you to succeed and is there to help you succeed and make sure you do so. So I could certainly echo that as well in my experience. And then, Myra, maybe one more question for you, just sort of on the recruiting side. So what's one piece of advice you give those folks on the phone here that are in their first year and thinking about going through the recruiting process, not only for AT Kearney, but just recruiting for consulting in general?
I guess I would just give the advice, really do your due diligence on the things that make each of the firms unique. I think at a glance, it's easy to think that consulting at any of the firms out there would be basically the same. And I think what I found through my recruiting process and through, speaking with a lot of my friends who are spread out across a variety of the firms, they're actually quite different. The people are different. The thing that sort of makes the firm tick is quite different. The cultures vary. what the firms like to be known for and the types of people that they like to work for, the types of work that they take on are different. And so I would say, don't overlook that and really spend your time talking to people and do a little bit of soul searching in the same way that you sort of would before business school in terms of like, what's the right place for me? What are the things that I'm looking for, both in terms of size and culture and the type of work that I want to be doing? And, I think the answer might surprise you. And so I think just spending that time up front, really getting to know what makes the firm unique is going to be important.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Art, Laura, either of you, any kind of advice you give for those people who are going through the recruiting process for consulting maybe for the first time?
Sure.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Laura, please.
I was just going to say, I would use this time. It's a really unique opportunity to have this internship experience, to be able to try something new and take a risk and really see if it's the right fit for you. And I think during the recruiting process, obviously it's been a few years for me, but you really do get a lot of opportunity and access to senior leadership to ask tough questions and engage with different folks and, hopefully experience your internship and really try out consulting and make sure that it's the right path for you. And so I would just, be honest with yourself and be willing to ask some of those challenging questions rather than focusing, sort of on the what I quote unquote should be doing part of it.
Totally agree. And then Art, you were going to add something?
Yeah, sure. I was going to echo a little bit what Myra said about, figuring out what's important for you in the recruiting process. For me, I wanted to make sure that I joined the firm that offers the level of diversity that I'm kind of attracted to, if you will, in terms of, who you see on a daily basis at the office, if you will. And I think A.T. Kearney definitely knocked it out of the ballpark there, because everybody I met had a unique background. And I'm not just talking, people looking different. It's just everything was different about every single person, and I really valued that.
Yeah, yes, completely agree. I think that's definitely one of the qualities that you see through the recruiting process, and then is sort of further ingrained as you get into the consulting role as well throughout the summer. And then Art, maybe sticking with you, you mentioned you had an interesting summer project. Can you tell me a little bit more about the project, maybe the role you had, and kind of a favorite memory or sort of what was impactful about it for you?
Sure. Yeah, so my project was in the automotive industry. So we're in Detroit helping one of the major tier 1 suppliers to all the major automotive manufacturers. They supply drivetrain components. And the client wanted to basically expand their portfolio to include more electrified propulsion items. So we were brought on board to help them navigate that path and help them understand whether or not they could do it internally, or they could, potentially pursue inorganic options for growth in that particular capability. So that was pretty exciting. It was a smaller team for us, so a lot of responsibility from day one and a lot of client exposure. And we ended up hosting, during my time there of about 9 weeks, we hosted 3 workshops, and I got to run one day of those workshops, and that was probably the most memorable part for me. It was nerve-wracking, but a fantastic experience, and the fact that the firm trusted me with that definitely felt good.
Yeah, completely agree, and that's that being prepared, but having an opportunity to have a real, actual, deliverables and real outcomes from that summer performance. So that's great. Myra, what about you? Would you mind sharing a bit about your summer experience?
Sure. So I worked at a retail pharmacy, a major player in the industry, And what I was responsible for was looking at their inventory operations. So I was able to lead that work stream sort of end-to-end myself. I helped the client identify major pain points that they were experiencing in their inventory process. I worked with a large team of stakeholders in order to then figure out and prioritize how they would tackle those pain points over sort of like a 3-year, strategic view. And then I also helped them identify key areas where they could improve on their, become more efficient in their operations in order to reduce costs, and identified a pretty significant cost savings target. So it was a very interesting project. What I loved about the experience was that I was able to sort of lead that work stream. I had a very senior client that I was interacting with on a daily basis. I was attending the steering committee meetings and giving updates and presentations. And so I had a very client-facing role that I was really grateful that Kearney entrusted me with. So I thought I learned a lot. Obviously, it was a new industry for me. It was everything about, I knew nothing about inventory management, and I thought that the trust they placed in me to get that work done, but then also be able to play, a very client-facing role was wonderful. In terms of like memorable moments, though, I'd say it was a really fun team, and we made it a point to do a lot of team events together. And so we would, go play mini golf or go play basketball a couple nights a week. But, a couple nights a week, the team and I would go to Planet Fitness and just get a workout in late at night whenever we could. And so there was those moments that I think really cemented the relationships and the bonding over the course of the summer.
Yep, you gotta have an opportunity to play as much as you work, right? So that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Exactly.
And then, Laura, maybe I'll turn it over to you here and talk a little bit about the mentorship program, right? So both during the program and then also sort of after your summer, and kind of how that plays throughout your career at AT Kearney.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you join for the summer associate internship, you'll be given a couple points of contact to reach out to. So one is your formal assigned mentor. I actually just recently, this past summer, went through being a mentor for a summer associate for the first time. So it was interesting to see the other side of the table. You'll also have, so in that formal mentor is there for, coaching conversations, to make sure that you're, getting access to the right resources, that you're feeling supported on your team, to help connect you with other folks in the firm who maybe work in practices that your project's not in, but that you're interested in learning more about. And then also to help with the formal review processes that you have, a midsummer review and then your end of summer review. So they are your, go-to touch point for just the end-to-end summer program. And you'll actually continue that conversation with them after the summer ends, even before as well. So before you join, you'll have conversations about what types of projects you're interested in, what you're looking to get out of your summer, talk about goals and objectives, et cetera. You'll also be given I don't remember if it's called a coach or a peer buddy, but somebody who you can go to for, maybe some of the silly questions that you don't want to go to your mentor for. Although, frankly, I think folks are super approachable. And so, I told my mentee to feel free to ask me whatever, timesheet expense report questions they have or whatnot, but you'll have some additional resources who are your sort of official go-to points from a mentorship perspective. And then in general, folks at the firm, my experience has been, are very approachable. So you'll have informal relationships as well with folks on your project, folks in the office, the recruiting team, and just, a number of different people you'll meet throughout. And those start before the summer experience actually kicks off, continue obviously throughout your summer, and then again, continue thereafter.
Perfect. Yeah, and I completely agree and echo that. And I really enjoyed, right? So I had a great, formal mentor for my summer, but I also felt like I had sort of a home office sort of team that was rooting me on and cheering me on throughout the summer, right, and helping me succeed as well as, my manager on my project. And I felt like really the level of support and sort of advocacy that you get was really more than I had expected, and helped a lot when I had both tough questions and then easy questions like the ones you described where I couldn't figure out how to submit an expense report or how to handle a timesheet. So I was definitely thankful for that. And then maybe we've talked about a couple of summer projects. Laura, maybe you could highlight some of the work that you've done since returning to the firm, and maybe one of the two of the kind of the highlights or the ones that you enjoyed the most.
Sure. So since rejoining full-time, I've done the bulk of my work in sort of broad organizational transformations. And so this is when we have usually a larger team out there working on a number of different functions across the company to identify, for each of these functions as well as for the company overall, where do we think they need to go in the next, 3-5 years. So, for example, I did one of these for a company actually on the East Coast, personal goods company, and we had a team of about 40 folks across all levels, across all different work streams out there. And so for those types of projects, really interesting and fun because, one, you're working with a big team, which I think is always, as far as like camaraderie goes, it's always nice to have sort of a big team there. And you also are driving a lot of impact, not just within your particular work stream, but for the organizational as a whole. So for that particular project, I was working on back office functions, so specifically HR, and then worked closely with, the finance team, the legal team, et cetera. We're all sort of in the same workstream family, if you will. Another similar project, actually one I'm doing right now, is for a telco client. And again, sort of broad transformation, but this time I'm focusing on sales and customer care. And again, it's where should this company go for the next 3 years? And so it's been really, fascinating working with senior leadership in the organization to say, what are the projects or the levers of the change we want to drive within sales, for example, in order to increase our revenue and, not just drive sales, but really rethink how we as an organization go about attracting new customers. And so having some of these opportunities to do much more transformational projects where, it's not just the work that we're driving within my particular work streams, but also the exponential impact of how that, is amplified when you have teams in other work streams as well, and it all coming together is something that I think is really fascinating and rewarding to see. Thank you, Laura.
Chad, you still with us?
I was going to say, Chad, are you still with us? Great.
Sorry, guys. I was, of course, on mute. So thanks, Laura. And I apologize for that, guys. But one more question here, maybe for you, Myra. You talked a little bit about some of the stuff you had done with the team and going to the gym and things like that. Can you talk a little about how, over the summer, and then Art, obviously, feel free to jump in, and Laura as well, how you kind of manage your work-life balance, right? And how maybe, or what AT Kearney can do or how they can support you on that front.
Sure. So what I found to be pretty consistent both in my summer project and the one that I've just joined this week has been that Kearney uses these WorkSmart Charters. So basically you kick off the project with everyone in the team huddling together and documenting what are the things that you're going to adhere to in terms of norms and, when you, like expectations for the team, when you're planning to, what days you're planning to travel, the expectations for the hours of the client, and then other things like, are you going to have dinner together as a team? Are you going to do other activities? What things are important to individual members of the team, and you just kind of try and get it all on paper and then all, commit to it. And the idea is that you do it when you kick off the project, and then you kind of try and and monitor and check in as the project progresses and say, how are we doing against this charter? Have we sort of been fulfilling the things that we agreed to? Do we need to adjust anything? So I thought that both of my project teams so far have done a really great job of implementing that sort of practice and adhering to it. And I think that's really helpful for work-life balance and really helpful for a check-in for the team. And so, for example, in this project kickoff, we agreed that we would have we would definitely commit the team together once every 2 weeks. I think, in practice it may happen more, but at a minimum once every 2 weeks, we'd all get together. We also have started to commit to weekly team workouts. But now I think it might be a little bit of a competition, so we'll see how we do with that. But I think those are the different things that really help in the work-life balance aspect, and I think just being able to have a medium or a forum in which to communicate, how you are doing as an individual and what are the things that are important to you. So maybe it will vary for different people. But I think that's been helpful, and I think it's actually, I haven't heard of my friends across other firms having a similar practice or experience. So but that doesn't mean it's not the case, but I think it's something that I've really come to value about A.T. Kearney.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Before I turn over to Q&A, Laura, anything you'd add to that and experiences or things that you liked or have done historically to kind of manage the work-life balance?
Yeah, I think in my perspective, it really all comes down to communication. And so Myra is talking about this, this WorkSmart Charter where it's a bit of a formal process we go through, but it's really, the end goal is just aimed at enabling better communication with your team about sort of what your needs are and how we can make sure that, your schedule is working for you. Obviously, I imagine everybody here knows that consulting is, it's in a lot of ways a demanding career and performers, and sometimes there's deadlines and you got to work, longer hours. Sometimes there's not, and you don't. But really, it comes down to how are you communicating with your and making sure that you're still getting the time you need. So my current project actually, for me, it was, some weeks doing a work from home. Because I travel quite a bit. In some evenings, it's skipping a team dinner because I just need some downtime and a little bit less team togetherness. And so it really just comes down to having a conversation about, what works for you and what works for a particular project team. And generally, in my experience, when I've brought, those conversations up with supervisors, with peers, et cetera, folks are really receptive.
Yeah, totally agree. And I've had some of those same experiences, right? Sometimes, you feel like you want to do everything all the time, but sometimes you just need that night to get your work done and no team dinner and early bedtime. So I completely agree there. Okay, you guys, appreciate it. I think, Tricia, I'll turn it over to you, and we'll spend the last 10 minutes here. So fielding any questions we might have got during the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad. Just a reminder that if you do have any questions, you can submit them to the Q&A pod that's in the right-hand corner, but we'll go ahead and get started. We have questions coming in. I think the first one we can actually direct back towards you, Chad. Maybe you could explain this a little bit more, but is exploring various industries encouraged in the first years at A.T. Kearney? At what stage of your career are you expected to focus?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So that's a good question. I think there are some people who come into consulting like myself, right, for the idea that they could go and try new things, different industries, see the same problem across multiple companies or see multiple problems in the same industry. And so I feel like for me personally, that's exactly what I got. And I think that you're certainly encouraged, particularly in the first years as your firm, coming in as a generalist, to go seek out different projects, both in different industries and across sort of our different function line or different functions or our different services, to kind of see what your fit is. And for me, right, it kind of surprised me. I had spent my early life in kind of a pricing, marketing type role, and I found or gravitated to more of an operations type projects that I really enjoy within the firm. And I think that that's kind of the important part about that first year or two, is to kind of go explore and make sure that what you're doing is what you really like to do. And then as you, I think as you progress, right, you start to find an area that you're really interested in, you start to specialize in it a bit, and you want to do more projects in that area, and it kind of leads to a natural line to kind of align or focus in on an area. But obviously as you progress in the firm, and certainly as you become a manager and kind of above, right, I mean, at some point in time, you're trying to seek out that specialization in a group of principals and partners that you work with, so you can continue to kind of grow and have that backing to kind of make your own way and try to path the partnership.
Great, thank you, Chad. This next one I'm going to direct at Laura. If you could talk a little bit about how team norms change from project to project. So how much time do you invest in your project teams at the outset to ensure you're working effectively together?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most challenging and also one of the most rewarding things about working in consulting is all the nuances of how different people, what their working styles are, what their preferences are, what their communication styles, feedback styles, et cetera, are. And that applies to your AT Kearney team, but it also applies to your client team. And so I think at the start of any new project, and I've worked on a number of longer projects, but probably in my last 2 years, something like, 5 or 6 different projects. At the start of any new project, there's a little bit of, sort of nervousness about, how am I going to get along with all these new folks, my new manager, my new, principal partner, my client counterparts. And it definitely does take a little bit more, I would say, effort and sort of awareness or proactiveness at the start of a new project to, have some conversations with those folks about, how do you like to communicate, how do you like to receive feedback, level setting on what the sort of team expectations are. One maybe tangible example, some partners are more than happy to review work in progress, work products. Some partners prefer to have sort of a near final version. And so understanding the differences and the nuances and having those dialogues early and being flexible and able to adapt, I think is important, and it's tough and it's challenging, and it's probably where I got the majority of my coaching early on, as to how to, flex on some of these things, or flex to some client dynamics that are, different at company A versus company B. I'm not sure if that entirely got at the question, but I think it really, again, comes back to communication and you personally feeling comfortable voicing sort of what you need and what your preferences are, but also being able to put yourself out of your comfort zone and adapt if, somebody's working style is a little bit different than what you normally are used to.
Great, thank you, Laura. I think that answered the question, and I think you definitely you gave some helpful tips there too. This next one I'm gonna direct to Art. Art, could you talk a little bit more about some informal mentors you met throughout your internship and after starting full-time?
Sure. So I think it's very important to kind of start building this network when you go through the recruiting process, because you do end up meeting a lot of people. And so you come in to your internship already having some sort of a, base network with whom you can consult on different issues, whether it be something simple or something more complex that's related to the client work. So I would say that part I definitely did quite a bit of legwork on. And then during the summer program, it's really just attending the summer associate events, and it generates so much attendance usually, especially in the larger offices. So you just get to meet so many people whom, again, you could contact for any reason. So I think it's just really important to kind of show your social self a little bit during the summer project, and then that will pay dividends as you start full time as well. And I mean, it's also important to kind of maintain those relationships as you go back to the second year of business school. So there are opportunities to connect with the next number of people with whom you work, because everybody travels. It's just nice to touch base once in a while. And again, like as you get on your first project, you are already in a pretty good position to talk to people about what's happening at the firm level, what projects are more important, which ones are maybe less so, and then which ones kind of, meet your personal preferences in terms of industries, in terms of skills that you're trying to develop. And that becomes your sounding board, essentially, or a launch pad, if you will.
Great. I think that answers the question, but also would love to hear from Myra on any additional thoughts you have on informal mentors that you've had.
Sure. I mean, I guess I would echo a lot of what was just said, but I think I have found that my manager from the summer has come to be a great informal mentor for me. And then, A.T. Kearney had assigned us with sort of buddies, people more at our peer level, and those are, that was a person that now I view as a mentor at the firm as well. And, I think just sort of back to the various, office view and a lot of the mobility, my mentors are spread all over the firm. They're not just in the New York office, but I've been trying to sort of build relationships with people that are in the industries or areas that I think I may have an interest in, and then start to learn more through them. And then I think as I, navigate throughout my career, then I think I'll, those will sort of land depending on what I've decided my, my stated interest is in terms of industry. And so I'll probably be a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more picky with who I'm going to choose as more official mentors. But I think in terms of unofficial mentors, I think it's helpful to have a variety of people that you can, ask for advice and lean on. So I think so far I've found that there are a lot of people that fit that bill. Great.
Well, thank you all so much for your thoughts and answering these questions. I know we're running short on time here, so I think just the last thing I wanted to ask, and maybe we can have you just run down the line really quick. But what's your favorite event that you went to during your summer internship?
Learn about the firm, without a doubt.
Yep, same.
That's the weekend trip to for everyone who's not familiar. Mine was, we actually did a team event with my project team and rented one of those pedal pubs and cruised around downtown Cincinnati on a little bit of a progressive dinner / pub crawl.
Yeah, I think Learn About the Firm is a hands down event for me, but we had a lot of great office events in Dallas, and the one I really enjoyed in particular, we did sort of, we went and played Topgolf, and then we did like sort of a progressive dinner afterwards with a lot of the principals and partners in the office. Is a really cool way to, in a more casual setting, get to know everybody.
Great. Well, Chad, I'll pass it back over to you to wrap up, and thank you all for joining.
Thanks, Tricia. And yep, I just wanted to say thank you again for those of you who spent the last 45 minutes with us. Hopefully we answered some of your questions, and want to wish you the best of luck in the recruiting process. And as I think we said at the outset, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email careers.mba@atkearney.com. Thanks for your time again, guys.